everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'll be showing you how I made the top of this outfit. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. I have my pattern traced out already. Here is my shoulder, my upper chest line, my bust line, my under bust, and my waist line. And over here I have my neckline drawn out. And here is my shoulder slope. And right here is my armhole. The first thing for us to do would be to determine our bust span. And this is the horizontal difference between the two apex points of your bust divided by 2. Mine was 3.5. I will mark that from my waistline to my bust line. So the horizontal difference between the two apex points of your bust divided by 2. Mark that from your bust line to your waistline. The next step would be to determine the midpoint of your shoulder. Mine was 2 inches. I'm going to mark that in the middle and I'll connect that to the bust line. The next step would be to add our darts. For my waist dart, I had 1 inch on both sides. So half an inch on this side and half an inch on the other end. And for my under bust, I marked 2 inches. 1 inch at one end and 1 inch at the other end. Because this is the bust area and you want that to protrude a little bit more. And the next thing to do would be to come down by 1 inch at the bust line. This is just to ease the bust area. And then I'm going to connect all of the dots together. The next step would be to determine the bust radius. So usually for a tube top, you'll be required to draw out a 360 degree. But for this tutorial, all you need is your bust radius. Mine was 3.5. I will place that on my bust line just like this and mark the top of the upper chest line. So the bust radius is the distance between your bust line and your under bust. Mine was 3.5. Place whatever yours is right on your bust line and mark the top of your upper chest line just like I did. The next thing would be to mark the dots, 1 inch on both sides. And then I'm going to connect that to the bust line. I came up 1 inch at the bust line just to ease the bust area. The next step would be to mark all of our measurements. My bust circumference is 34 inches divided by 4. Then I added back the 2 inch dart we took out. I will mark the same measurement on my bust line. And for my under bust, my measurement is 7.5. And I'm also going to add back the darts we took out from the measurements. And then I would mark the measurement for my waistline as well. And also add back the darts. And by the time you're cutting out on your fabric, you'd have to add seam allowance. The last step would be to insert the neckline for this tube top. So for me, I want a square neckline. If you want something different, then go for it. You could have a sweetheart neckline. But mine is going to be a square neckline. So I'll mark that just like that. And I'm also going to connect the other end as well. And we are done with the front piece. I will cut this out, and I'm also going to show you how to draft out the back pattern. So this is the center front. It has to be on fold while cutting on the fabric. And we need just one of this. And we need two of those because that's going to be the sides for the front piece. Here is the back pattern traced out. So here is my upper chest line, my under bust, and my waistline. So I came down by 1 inch at the upper chest line for the back piece. And don't forget to add your zipper allowance for the back piece. The first thing for you to do would be to determine the midpoint of your shoulder. So mine was 2 inches. I'm going to connect that to the upper chest line. And then I'll insert all of my measurements for the back piece. So the darts for the back piece was 1/2 inch on both sides. So I'm going to add back 1 inch on both sides while marking my measurements. And I'm going to connect all of the dots together. The last thing would be to come down by 1 inch at the upper chest line. But this is optional. And we're basically done with the back pattern. So I'm going to work on the zipper part just to avoid the zipper part from bulging. I will come down by 1 inch, sorry, 1/2 inch at the zipper allowance. And then I'm going to slant my way down and connect that with a straight line. So this is going to help us not have the zipper part bulging. And we need 2 pieces of this and 2 pieces of the other one as well. I'm going to cut on my fabric now. So here is the center front. It has to be on fold. So my fabric is on fold. And I'm going to pin this down and add all of my seam allowances all the way around. By the time I was done with this, I would need to cut out the 2 sides for the front part. So I'll cut this out and I'm going to use this to cut out the other piece as well. So don't forget to add your seam allowance while cutting out on your fabric. So right side's facing right side, I'm going to cut out the other piece for the front piece. And I'm going to come down by 1 inch at the armhole. And I'll cut that out. And this is what the front looks like. So here is the back piece. I notched the area for the zipper just to be able to identify the zipper area. And I'm going to start with the center front on my sewing machine. So I'm going to join the center front to one of the sides for the front piece, right sides facing right sides. And by the time I'm done, I'm going to place notches on the curved ends. So I'm going to join the other parts to the center front as well. And I will also notch the curved area. So the next thing will be to iron out all of the sewed seams. So the way you iron up the upper part would usually be different. You have to be careful how you iron up the bust area. But all of these have been ironed out and the seams have been opened up. The next thing would be to join the back part to the front piece. Right sides facing right side. Then I'm going to run a straight stitch. So this is my main fabric. I have a lining, but it's the same fabric. So I'll do the same for my both for the lining and for the main fabric. And here is it. The main piece have all been sewed out and the seams have been ironed out. So I'll lay this flat just like this. Here is my main piece and I'll also lay the lining on top of it. So I'm using the same fabric as my lining. I'll pin this down and I'm going to run a straight stitch all the way round and I'll leave the middle part open to be able to turn this inside out. And here is what it looks like. So both the lining and the main fabric have been joined together and the middle part where we turned it inside out. I will close that up later on. But before then, I have to go in and bring out all of the edges for easy ironing. And by the time I'm done, I will join the zipper to this tube top. And then I'll close up the middle part where we turned this inside out. And we're basically done with the tube top. Here is my sleeve cut out already. I have a tutorial on how to make puffy sleeves. I will link that in the description box below. So there's going to be an elastic casing at the bottom part as well as on the top of the sleeves. So from the bottom part, I came up by 4 inches to be able to create the casing for the elastic band. So I'm going to pin this down to the sleeve and I'll run a straight stitch on the edges, on both edges, leaving the middle part open because that's where the elastic band will go through. And by the time you have an elastic band, you should have something like this for both the bottom and the top part. So I'm going to run a straight stitch on both edges and leave the middle open. By the time I'm done with this, I'm going to run a straight stitch and hem the top and the bottom parts of the sleeves, as well as the armhole. I do not have a lining for the sleeves, so I'm going to hem all of the sides together. By the time I'm done with hemming all of the sides, I'm going to create a casing for the elastic band on top. So the top part of the sleeve is going to have an elastic casing, which I'm going to create right now. By the time I was done with that, I would add or join the sleeves to the tube top. And here is what it looks like. The sleeves have been joined to the tube top, and the zipper as well has been joined to the tube top. So like I said, there was a casing, elastic casing for the top and for the bottom part of the sleeves. And here is what it looks like. And we are basically done with the tutorial. Thank you so much for waiting till the end of this video. If this video was helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't get to miss any of my videos. Thank you so much and bye!